Sagt der Heilige Mishnah. Eilu dvorim, asurim limkar l'ovid gechavim. This is what you're not allowed to sell to ovid gechavim. It's trublin, I think it's shuach with a shin, b'noi shuach, u'petoitreis, u'levayna, v'tarnagoy l'halavam. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, muter limkar loy, tarnagoy lavan, if it's beina tarnagoy. So if you're selling him a whole group of chickens, and in the order there's also a white one, because white ones are the ones that they would like to bring the service to getchkes. However, ubizman shu b'fnei atzmoi, if you have to sell a white chicken by itself, you have to disable it from being able to be brought as a carbon to Avoda Zara. Kaiteya es hatzpoi u'moicher loy, v'she'en makrivin chasher l'avodas gechavim, like we had at the beginning of the Masechta, related to Noach, what Bnei Noach do with what their standards are of what can be brought as a carbon. Ushar kolad varim, and other things, staman mutter, upirusha and aser, all these things will be explained in the Gemara. Rab Meir Omer, af dekel tav v'chotza v'niklav, aser limkar loibzik gechavim. I think we're going to have a different girsa for this word. Let's see if it's a niklas. Yeah, the Gemara calls it niklas. Okay, Zok the Heilige Gemara on Daf Yudal and Amaral of today's Gemara. My it's trublin. What are its trublin? Zok the Gemara, that's easy. It's turnisa. What is turnisa? So Rashi is a min eris. It's a type of rice. The shita. Hadash shita b'rosh shita. We say I don't know if that's what it is, but it's some type of rice. Does the article actually define what it is? Oh, so it's not rice. It's a tree. Oh, so. It's good. It's good you told me. So it's a big tree. Oh, so it's a big tree that you're not allowed to sell. When you were talking about what minim you're not allowed to plant on Shemitah, the Rabbanon added additional items that would be also to plant on the Shemitah year. And what were those types of plants? Alachsin, the itztrublin, muchsachin, muchsasin v'neshuach. Now, v'isol kedaitach, it's trublin is turnisa. That wouldn't make sense because turnisa mi isa b'shviyas. Would turnisa even have any iser on shmita? It doesn't make sense that they would, because what Tanya we learned zaklal. When it comes to shmita, this is the rule as to what would be prohibited to do on shmita, what type of plants would be usher to plant on shmita, and what type of plants would be mutter. If it has roots that are underground, that are permanent roots, yesh lo shvius, that has shmita. Shmita will apply to that. And we know that turnisa does not have roots. So therefore, how could the Brisa say that Hasifu alein alachsin v'tztrubel? Ella Amrav Safra, it's peri de arza, which do have strong roots. The Chen Chiyasa Rav and Amrav Elazar peri de arza. So let's see what Rashi says about what these roots are. Zok Rashi kol she'elo yiker li'eskayim ba'aret b'moisak yeshamim. Kagon kishun diluin chayotza ben. So a lot of vegetables, kishun cucumbers, I think their roots die in the winter, right? So they have to be replanted. So that's not something that would have the halachas of Shemitah applied to them. Allah should only apply to something that remains rooted all winter long. That's what Rashi seems to say. Tosfos argues, and Tosfos says that, in fact, there are many things that don't have roots in the winter, yet are still, we know, are usher, like Hari Tvua. Tvua, right, grain, wheat, there's nothing left, you have to replant it every year. And there isn't in Shvius. So how could Rashi say that that's what it's Tolian? So Rabbeinu Tam says, the trei gavna turnisa ninu. There's two types of turnisa. Whatever this is, but she'ein lo ikr shorish bekarka loy bi moishachama v'loy bi moishachsham. This doesn't even have roots in the summer. I'm not sure exactly how it grows, especially if it's a min eres. How can you have a min eres that doesn't take root? So I'm not sure what it is, but it's something that doesn't even take root in the summer. That's something that wouldn't be included in the halachos of Shemitah. So I'm not sure exactly what these things are, and I'm not sure why these things you can't sell to Avodah, because they're chashuva plants, they're plants that they use in the service of Avodah Zara. There must be some type of special plant that would be prohibited. So the Gemara says at the end, what is it? It's perid aza. I don't really know what perid arza are either. Rashi's galant, so it's some type of fruit. What does he say over here on galant? Under hay, he says balut eitz ha'aloin atuf the klipa kasha. It has a very thick peel. Hadoima l'seifel uboil krimelis. I'm not sure what this is. The Darsh will give you a little bit of an explanation of what it is. What is this peri de arza? Like sometimes the Gemara gives an explanation, it's gewaltig, but it doesn't help us know what it is any better than the time before. As I get this. Okay, zok the Gemara weiter. Benois shuach. I hope is it shuach the shin? It's shuach the shin. Benois shuach. Amar Rabba Bar Bachana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. You know these are te'eni chiyurasa, white dates. Uvetoitros. So I'm sorry, white figs. Okay, tomorrow my dates. Okay, uvetoitros. Now the Mishnah, when you read it, seems like there's three meaning, and petoitros is the last of three. Zok Gemara, that's not what it is. Petoitros means stems, and it's going back on the items that we mentioned earlier. So when it says in the Mishnah, it's drublin uvenoishuach, it means upetoitros, including their stems. It means when is it also to sell? It's also to sell them when they're together with their stems. You know, when you normally buy strawberries, they don't have stems. But if you go to Pusateri's and you want to buy super fancy strawberries, they come with stems. Those are even more fancy. So the type of b'noshuach and the strublin that we're talking about are those that have their stems with them. Zok to Gemara weiter. Levoina. Levoina is also. Levoina, I believe, is one of the ingredients of keteris, is it not? Yeah. No, no, it's not. Levoina is what you. Levoina daka, right? Levoina daka, that's right. Okay. We also don't have put levoina by the lechem aponim, right? There's two beziche levoina by the lechem aponim. So Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Amar Rabbi Shimon Lachish, levoina zaka. It's pure levoina. Tana, we learned umikulon moichin lahem chavila. You're not allowed to sell smaller amounts, but you're allowed to sell them bundled, meaning you're allowed to sell them in larger amounts, because that's not going to be used for avodah zarah. That's just a merchant. You know, you could tell if a guy's buying as a wholesaler or if the guy's buying to give it to the avodah zarah. He's buying a sizable amount. He's just buying it as a wholesaler. He's going to turn it around and sell it. Rebbe says, "Ein chavila pachas mishloisha monin." Rashi says it's a mishkal shloishis monin. If you buy at least 3 monin of weight, that's a larger amount. That's not someone who's buying it for avodah zarah. He's buying it because he's a business, he's a merchant, and he deals in selling these products. What's the difference if he's buying it for business? But who is he going to turn around and sell it to? He's going to sell to another guy who's going to do avodah zarah with it. Amar Abaye alifnei makpidinon. You know why we don't sell to a guy? Because it's lifnei iver loishit michshol. We don't want to help him do avodah zarah, which a guy is not allowed to do. But alifnei de lifnei loimif kadinon. Here's lifnei de lifnei. You're afraid that if you sell it to A will then go sell it to B, and B is going to be over avodah zarah. That's not what the Torah prohibits. Zok Rashi alifnei maf kadinon. Alifnei iver anu mitzuven shloiliten michshol bedavar ha'asr loy. But the whole hani dasrin lezvunilahu it's mishum lifnei iber lashit michshol, because a guy is not allowed to do avodah zarah. The benoich muzer al avodah skachavim, but a lifnei the lifnei to go in hacha the high vade lav avodah skachavim kaboy. He doesn't need it for avodah skachavim. Umishum the loy lezdaven iu lachrini umikteri. That's already too far. Loymif kadinon lemeisar. We weren't prohibited from doing something like that. V'tarnagol lovan, because here we have to help up a little bit and get a little bit complex. Amr Rab Yoina, Amr Rab Zera, Amr Rab Zvid. The Ika de Masni, Amr Rab Yoina, Amr Rab Zera, without Rab Zvid. Tarnagol lami. What if there's a goy walking down the street? Tarnagol lami, I'm looking to buy a tarnagol. He doesn't say what type of tarnagol he's looking for. He's just walking down the market asking who has a tarnagol for sale. So if he's just asking for a tarnagol, muter limker loy tarnagol lovan. You're even allowed to sell him a tarnagol lovan. Why? Because clearly he wasn't trying to buy it for Avoda Zara, because if he was trying to buy it for Avoda Zara, he would have needed to be asking dafka for a tarnagol lovan. Well, what if he's coming down the street and he's saying tarnagol lovan lami? So you see clearly his intent is to be buying something that he's going to use for Avoda Zara. Then also limker loy tarnagol lovan. Then you're not allowed to sell it to him because it's quite clear what his intentions are. Based on this member that was set over by Rab Zvid or Rab Zera, we have to see how that fits into our Mishnah. Now, Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Moichahu loy tarnagol lovan beina tarnagol. Rabbi Yehuda says if you're selling him a whole bunch of tarnagolim, it doesn't matter if there's a tarnagol lovan mixed into the bunch. And what is his svara? Obviously, his svara is if he's buying a whole bunch of tarnagolim, he's probably not buying it for Avodah Zarah, because what is he going to be doing with all the other tarnagolim? It must be that he's done buying tarnagolim. So, what exactly is the case where Rabbi Yehuda is matter? If he came looking for a tarnagol lovan, tarnagol lovan lami afilu beina tarnagolim namiloi. If he's clearly looking for a tarnagol lovan, there's no svara to say that Rabbi Yehuda would say if you sell him a whole bunch, he could take it. You could do that because clearly we know what his intent is to use for Avodah Zarah. Ella Rabbi Yehuda's heter to sell him a tarnagol lovan beina tarnagolim elah eloi dika amar tarnagol lami. So clearly he was not looking specifically for a tarnagol lovan. He was just looking for a tarnagol. So there you're allowed to sell him a tarnagol lovan if it's mixed into others as well. Nevertheless, Rabbi Yehuda bein ha tarnagol in bifnei atzmoi loy. So you clearly see Rabbi Yehuda will argue on Reb Zera, because Reb Zera holds that even if you say tarnagol lami, you're allowed to give him a tarnagol lovan, one by itself. Where it seems like Rabbi Yehuda holds, even then, best case scenario is amongst other tarnagolim, you can sell him a tarnagol lovan, but you can't sell him a tarnagol lovan by itself. Ula Tanakama, who's more machmir than Rabbi Yehuda, he holds afidu beina tarnagolim nami loy. So Oibezoi, it's going to be shver on Reb Zera or Reb Zvid. How could you say that if he says tarnagol lami, you can give him a tarnagol lovan? The Rabbanan hold you cannot, and even Rabbi Yehuda holds you could. That's only if it's tarnagol lovan bein tarnagol macher, if he's selling him a whole bunch. Yet Reb Zvid and Reb Zera seem to say that even a tarnagol lovan by itself, you'd be allowed to sell it. Amar Reb Nachman bar Yitzchak, hacha b'may askinon, the Amar zeh v'zeh. He specified. So Zok Rashi, masnisin de Rabbi Yehuda b'fnei atzmai loy. You know what the case is? It's not when he said tarnagol lami, because in the case of tarnagol lami, everybody agrees that you could sell him even one by itself. You could sell him a tarnagol lovan. But the case here was when he said tarnagol lovan lami, tarnagol shachar lami, tarnagol edom lami, he listed off a whole bunch of different types of tarnagolis that he was looking for, but he specified lovan as well. So kagoyin to mikar itkar lovan v'shachar ve'edon. So he didn't just say tarnagol lami, he listed off different colors, including white as well. So in such a case, hilchach lovan leRabbi Yehuda b'fnei atzmai aser. Rabbi Yehuda agrees that you couldn't sell a tarnagol lovan by itself because he did specify lovan. Even the mikar itkar and the haskes shachar lovan v'azalei. So therefore, we say meikar nami ichvin lovan. Even if he specified three different colors, but he did specify lovan, there you're not allowed to give him a tarnagol lovan by itself. If he's talking specifically looking for a tarnagol lovan, which is what we're worried about, why would he have also mentioned tarnagol shachar and tarnagol edom? The high da'at shachar, it's i'arume aram. He's just trying to fool you. The Yadahu, let me just finish Rashi. The Yadahu, this guy knows that you're not going to want to sell him a white chicken because it's for Avodah Zarah. The other who the E Sha'il Lavan L'chudei Loizavin Le Yisrael. He knows no Jew will sell him a white one because he knows they're not allowed to. So he figures I'll also itemize others. So at least I'll get my white one, because by itemizing others, they'll be fooled into thinking that I want others and I'm not makpid on love, but really I am. So therefore, if he only ends up taking a white one, there Rabbi Yehuda al because we're choshed very much that that's what he was looking for. But if you're giving him a whole bunch, then we say the migu de shachar lav lavoidis kachavim lavanami lav lavoidis kachavim. So Rabbi Yehuda's justification for allowing you to sell him a Tanag Lovin amongst other Tanag Olim is because if he's taking a whole bunch, then probably he wasn't bedafka looking to buy a Lovin for Avoda Zara. He just mentioned a variety of types. But if you're only selling him a Tanag Lovin, which is what his target was, then we're concerned that it's for Avoda Zara. The Rabbanan are more macham. For Rabbanan afilu bein Tanag Olim nami oser hoyel the katava Lovin. The Maisi listed off Lovin. Now, no matter what you give him, we're concerned about you giving him a loan. However, when we Tanagol Stama, but what about a case where you didn't list off Lovan, Shachar, and Edom? He just said, I'm looking for a Tanagol. There we default to the Psak of Reb Zera. Bein Rabbi Yehuda, Bein Rabbanan, Mutter Limkoloi Tanagol Lovan, Reb Zera.
Let's make a difference that either or all. If he says either, then Elder is not trying to make a point. He might just accepting one, any of them. He says all, then
I don't see that Rashi makes that distinction. So since I don't see that they make that distinction, because it's just a zev, this and this. So vice the under no circumstances when he's saying that would you be allowed to sell him just a lovam, because then we're choshid that there's a ploy happening here. Okay, but that's a good point. What if he says the first? I want both bedavka, so maybe that would be better. But if he still ends up only taking 11, we're still afraid that it was a ploy, according to Rabbi Yehuda. So at least we've for that. Tanya Namiha. We have another brayso to prove Zok Rashi. What are we proving? The teacher of Nachman, the Omer Zev is a pligi. That our Mishnah is speaking in the case of Zev is that. But if you stam said Tanag Olami, everybody agrees you could give him a Tanag Olam. Because we have a brayso that is more detailed in the machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chacham. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Mosai. When do I say you can sell him a white one amongst others? Bisman she'amar Tanag Ze Lovam. I'm sorry, is it Osir? Only then is there. Avol Amar Ze Vize, then it's going to be mutter. So you see clearly that he's only matter in the case of Ze Vize, and he only answers in the case of only Lovam. Afilu Amar Tanagol Ze, it would be mutter because he didn't speak out Lovam. Let's have a look at Rashi. Zok Rashi. Amosai Tanagol Lovan Osir Limkor like Moti corrected. Bisman Shomer Tanagol Ze Lovan Mechorli. Sell me this white chicken. Vai Zez Lavdafka. So it's just a little bit confusing Loshen Zeh. So we should really read it as Amosai Bisman Shomer Tanagol Lovan. Avalim Omar Zevizeh Mutter. Zok Rashi. Aval Omar Zevizeh Eine Mutter Limkoloi Elosh Neim Yachad. It'll be mutter to sell them both together, as Rabbi Yehuda says. Alma Rabbi Yehuda b'da Amar Zev Zekai. When does Rabbi Yehuda say that you could only sell him a white one amongst others? Is if you said Zev Zev. But you still wouldn't be able to sell him the Tanaga Lovan by itself. Hoyel v'Amar Lovan, because since he did itemize Lovan as well. And from Rabbi Yehuda Shita, we can obviously figure it out that the Rabbanan even prohibit even in this case. Okay. Now we have a new case. What about Stamazai? A guy is making a wedding party for his son. Ovid kechavim she'asa mishta levnoi, oy shehaya lechoyle b'sech pesai, mutter. So let's have a look at Rashi. Vafilu Amar Tanagol Zalavan. So even if you specified Tanagol Zalavan in our Mishnah, everybody holds that you wouldn't be allowed to sell Tanagol Zalavan. But what if he needed it specifically for Mishta B'noi? So Zakrashi, if you know that that's the case, and you know that that's why he's buying it, then even if he says Tarnaga Lavan mutter, you know why? Because we know it's not for Avodah Zarah. The list udasai kavayale mishumnoi. He wants to serve this delicacy by his suda. I assume it's serving it. I can't believe the guy just has a white chicken running around for decoration. Because Rashi is mishumnoi because of beauty. Does that mean he's keeping it alive as a decoration? Or Ulechoyle, everyone stay on the table. It'll add to the contents of the table. Ulechoyle nami kabayale mishum refuah. And choyle he would need it for refuah. It must be to use because looking at a chicken, I'm not sure exactly how that would impact refuah. So even if he says I want the tarnag alavan, but you know he's making chasna, or you know that he has a choyle, then we know that it's not for avodah zarah. Then it would be allowed. Okay, gewaltig. Fragt die Gemara about Nan. Rooster. Right, okay, good. Fragt die Gemara, about Nan we learned, Ovid kechavim, she'asta mishtelubna, a guy who made a wedding for his son, Einoi Aser, Ella Oise Hayoy, Vi Oise Ha'ish Bilvad. It's only Aser, right? We had this Mishnah earlier. If Chavim is making a wedding, this is not called Yom Edai, it's only his personal Yom Edai. So Einoi Aser Ella Oise Hayoy, Vi Oise Ha'ish Bilvad. But Oise Hayoy, Vi Oise Ha'ish Mi Aser. But there still isn't this in Avodah Zarah. So we learned that even when someone's making chasna, you're also afraid that it's Avodah Zarah. And although it's not usher to sell him things 3 days before, but it is usher to sell him on that day. So how come over here our Gemara is saying that if you're selling him this white chicken for his son's chasna, you don't have to worry about Avodah Zarah. You see from the Mishnah earlier that you surely have to worry about Avodah Zarah. Amar Yitzchak bar Misharsha bit Tavzig. What does Tavzig mean? Zokt Rashi. Tavzig means Hai Mishnah de Katani Mutter Limkor Loy Tarnag Alavan Lav Mishnah Chuppus Benoi. That's not the chasna. That's the Shever brothers. The chasna itself, as the Mishnah said earlier, we are concerned it's for Avodah Zarah. But the Avoda the Takrubas Avodah Kaboyle, if it's the night of the chasna, we're talking about El B'Mishnah Shomereus Sheoisin and the Orim Zem Zeh the current Kamprusha. The bachelor's party, stag, right? So that's what it means. They want to have kachkas by the stag. Maybe it is Lunai. Basically, is what they use it for, right? The lechashiv kulahai, that's not called such a chashiv asuda, sheyakrivu lavoditzkacham. By that too, they were not worried about avoditzkacham, and that's what our Gemara here is referring to, or it's actually a brisa here. And that's what our brisa here is referring to, where it says that if you know he's making this type of party, you're allowed to sell him a Tainag 11, even though he's asking for it specifically. Tanan, the Sharkal Advarim, Staman Mutter in Pirusha Maser. So this is something that the Mishnah said that we didn't really know what it meant. So now we will see what it means. Zokt Gemara, my Staman my Pirushim. What do we mean? Zokt Gemara, Ilema Stama Tika Amar Chiti Chavarta. If he says, I want white wheat. Now, white wheat must be something that's very choshev that could be used for avodah zarah. So if he says white wheat, but he doesn't specify, I need white wheat for avodah zarah, that you'd be allowed to sell to him. And pirusha means if he tells you specifically, I'm buying white wheat for avodah zarah, so then anything he wants to buy, if he tells you I'm buying it expressly for avodah zarah, there a law you wouldn't be able to sell it to him. That can't be pshat in the Mishnah. Why Zok Gemara? Because Stomon Tzricha Lemeimar. Loy Stomon Tzricha Lemeimar Dimizavninan. I don't need a Mishnah to tell me that a regular product he could buy if he doesn't specify he's buying it for avodah zarah. It's pashut. A and B v'loy perushon Tzricha Lemeimar Loy Mizavninan. And if a guy tells you beferish, I'm buying it for avodah zarah, I don't need a Mishnah to tell you that it's prohibited. That's obviously the halacha. Ella, what Stamon must mean is the ka'amar chiti. He didn't say I need a special type of wheat. He asked for regular wheat. There, you don't have to be concerned that he might use them for avodah zarah. But Pirushon, the ka'amar chavarta, where he said I want special type of wheat, a more expensive type of wheat, there you have to be choishish that it's for avodah zarah, even though he didn't say so. So if that's the case, let's look at a comparable case by the Tanna Goyim. Michlal, the tarnagol. If you're talking about a tarnagol, which is not a regular item, that's something that's a tarnagol oven, which we know is likely to be for avodah zarah. Afidu staman nami loy, even stam, right? It's only other generic things. If you don't specify for avodah zarah, you don't need to worry about. But a tarnagol oven is itemized as one of the special things that you're not allowed to sell. So it's mashma that would even be more severe than any other old thing. And therefore, even stoma, it would be usher, which is going to be shver and abzair, because Abzair said if a guy just says tarnagol lami, you are allowed to sell him a tarnagol lavan. Dr. Loy. Afilu staman lami loy. Dr. Amri la'olam staman de kamer is chiti chavarta. And Pirusha the Kamer Lavadis Kachavim. You're going to ask me, why do I need it for? The stomach is pashut, why should it be usher? And if a guy specifies that it's for Avodah Zarah, it's pashut that it's usher. Why do I need the mission to tell me that it's usher? You're right. There's no chiddush in the halacha that if I stam ask for white wheat, there's no chiddush in the halacha that that's mutter. Because there's no reason to assume otherwise. But the chiddush is in the second half of the case. And that is, if you speak out that it's for avodah zarah, it's also. You might ask, why is that a chiddush? It's pashut. You're telling the guy, he's telling you he's buying it for avodah zarah. Dr. Mira, no. So kadaita chamina, we would think that he's not, even though he's saying that he's buying it for avodah zarah, he's not really buying it for avodah zarah. So why would he say that he's buying it for avodah zarah? Because hi gavra lav lavodah kachavim kaboi ella mebek hu the ovik. He himself is a very God-fearing person. He's a Getchke-fearing person. He's a devout Christian, right? And he knows if someone bought something from me that he was planning to give to the church, I give him a discount. So he assumes that whoever he buys from will also give him a discount. So that's why he's saying it. He thinks, listen, if I'm a devout Christian, this store owner that I'm buying from is probably also a devout Christian. He has a picture of the Lubavitch Rebbe on the shelf, kasha for myself. But I'm thinking that if I say it's for a religious purpose, I'll get a better deal. He's saying that it's for avodah zarah, so he should give me a good deal. Kamash Malon, that if he specifies that it's for avodah zarah, you take him at his word, and you're not allowed to sell to him. You don't interpret his claim that it's for avodah zarah because he's trying to extract a discount out of you. Let's have a look at Rashi. Kosher. He's connected to avodah zarah. If anyone would have bought from this fellow, the purchaser here, someone will come to buy something from him, he surely would give it for cheaper. Since this guy is also a Baal Avodah Zarah, if somebody was buying something from him, not for their own personal use, but to give as a carbon, he would for sure give them a discount. And he thinks everybody thinks like him. I'm a religious Christian, and I'll sell anything to anybody. I will give it to him for a cheaper. I'll give him a better deal. So therefore, he thinks anybody else thinks like I do, and therefore, if I tell them it's for avodah zarah, I will get a better deal. So it's not. It's just for his own profit, voluntary. So I love this guy. Look at the hypocrisy of these guys. He's a devout Christian. He'll give everybody a discount. So I'll be a crook and I'll try to get a better deal out of you on lie and tell you that it's Christian. That's a good. Okay, look to more right there. Boy Rabashi. You know, it really wouldn't work. The Yid said, "Ich ken shanoch de trick." The guy from Shanash. Look to more right there. Boy Rabashi. Tana goy lovon ketua lami mahu. What if someone says Tana goy lovon ketua lami? So there, Pashtus, he's not looking for a tarnagol that he's planning to use for avodah zarah, because if he's specifying he wants ketua, he wants a mechusar regel, he for sure doesn't have in mind to give it to avodah zarah. Mao limkolor tarnagol lovon shalom. Since clearly he's not looking for a carbon, could I now sell him a regular tarnagol lovon? Mi amrinon mi de ka'amar ketua lav lavodah kachab mekaboy. Since he specified ketua, he's clearly not planning to use it for avodah zarah, and therefore you're allowed to sell it to him. Maybe he knows you're not going to sell him a white chicken. So if he says that he needs a ketua, then you'll sell it to him because you'll think it's not for avodah zarah. And he figures who has a chicken in stock with a broken leg, chances are he'll just give me a regular one. and maybe that's what his plan is. As Rashi says, I'm sorry. No, but he knows a Jew won't sell somebody something that could be. He knows the Mishnah. He just doesn't know the Gemara.
Plausible reason why he wants it.
He doesn't want it. He doesn't want it. He's just assuming you're not going to tell about him.
I know, but there has to be a plausible reason. You asked for a broken one, right?
I mean, what could be the reason? I don't. But maybe that's why I say Reuben Ka'amarim. The Yadahu she'ain katua motzi. He knows it's not likely that they'll find one. V'yimach v'lo shalem, and they'll sell him a shalem. El lahoitzi mi libam shelo yavinu shelo tzorech avodas kachavim hu tevei katua. You know what? I'll tell you what his justification could be. He says, I'll prove it to you that I'm not buying it for avodah zarah. Give me one with a broken leg. I want to eat it. I like white chickens. Right? Meanwhile, he figures the guy's not going to have it in stock. Right? I remember when we used to buy things in department stores, like in Simpsons and Eaton's. So I once wanted to buy a baseball bat. So I went into Simpsons to buy a baseball bat. So they have a whole rack full of baseball bats. So I looked through every single one until I found one that was scratched. And I go to the manager and says, you have to give me a discount. He says, we have 400 bats there. You had to pick the one with the scratch? I said, yeah, I want the Ketua with Afka. And I got a discount. If you're going to tell me, Hi Aruma Huda Kama Arim, if you're going to say that, yeah, you wouldn't be able to sell it to him in this case, because you're assuming he's just trying to get around your blockade, what if he said, Tanagoy Lovan Lami, Tanagoy Lovan Lami, if he says that, but and you gave him a black one and he took it. And you gave him a red one and he took it. So he actually was asking for Tanagalovim, true, but you gave him other colors and he accepted it. He actually bought it from you. Could you now also sell him a lovan? Because he's clearly shown that he's buying other types of chickens as well. So clearly, or could be he knows in order to get a white one out of you, he'll have to buy extras, because otherwise you won't sell him the white chicken, and therefore you're not allowed to sell it to him. Zok Gemara, take it. So you thought you go to the store, you buy chicken. Even buying chicken is a whole complicated cheshbon when you can buy chicken and how you can buy chicken. Zok Gemara, nowadays you can sell it to the guy, but we don't sell fresh chicken. We can sell it to you barbecue, and then you're good to go. Zok Gemara, Rav Meir Omer af dekel. So let's look at the end of the Mishnah and the lashon that it had. There's three things that were prohibited. Af dekel. There was chotzuv and niklas, right? It said niklav or niklas. Is those three things you're not allowed to sell. Amr Abchista lavima. Gemiri, we learned the avodas kachavim, the Avram Avinu, Maseches Avodah Zara that Avram Avinu had was Daled Meya Pirki Havya. He had we have a 5 prakim. Our Maseches Avodah is 5 prakim. Avram Avinu had 400 prakim in his Maseches Avodah Zara. The Mefarshim talk about why did Avram Avinu have 400 prakim? What was wrong with our 5 prakim? Because in Avram Avinu's days there was a proliferation of Avodah Zara. Nowadays, we learned it in Sanhedrin that they davened, the Anshe Knesset davened to just take away the Yitzhar of Avodah Zara. So Avodah Zara is not so popular. 5 prakim will cover all of the details. But Avram Avinu, since there was so much Avodah Zara around him, there was so much more information. He had to know each type of Avodah Zara out there. What is Osher? What's Mutter? So he had many more prakim in his Maseches Avodah Zara. That's one pshat. Another pshat that the Mashiach brings down is that, it says in Chazal, Kol HaKoyes Ki'ilu Avad Avodah Zara. There's so many different avers that are compared to Avodah Zara. So Avram Avinu took those as seriously as real Avodah Zara. He didn't just use it as a saying. So therefore, he had all those zaken that are compared to Avodah Zara were also in Avram Avinu's Maseches Avodah Zara. But Vanan Chamishitnan. All we have is 5 prakim, and we still can't seem to figure it out. And we still don't know what it's talking about, because half of these items in the list, we didn't even know what they were. I don't understand what the problem is. What exactly isn't clear? Is it because the Katani of Meir Omer, Af Dekel, Tav, Chatzav, and Niklas, Osir, Limker, Lovit, Kechavim? So is that where you have a problem? Why you have a problem? Dekel, Tav, Hu Deloy Mizavninan, Hadekel Bish Mizavninan? So your kasha would be that it says dekel. The dekel tav literally means good dekel. Dekel bish literally means a bad dekel. But these are not high quality and low quality. It's different types of a dekel. There was a dekel that's name was dekel tav, there was a dekel that's name was dekel bish. So are you telling me that when it says dekel tav you can't sell, but you're allowed to sell another type of dekel bish? But that's not true, because what's not we learned, ein moichin lahem b'mechuber lakarka. You can't sell them anything that's mechuber lakarka, right? So it doesn't make a difference what type of plant it is. Nothing is allowed to be sold to them if it's mechuber lakarka. And the reason why you cannot sell them anything mechuber lakarka, Rashi tells us, kidem afarish lakamon, like the Gemara will tell us in Daf Chav, mishum dechsev loy sechanim, meaning loy sechanim pashat don't try to get chen with them, don't try to gain favor by them. But we darshan it loy sitein lahem chaniya bekarka. Don't give him any foothold in the land. By selling them a mechuber lakarka, you're selling them rights to the land to house that mechuber lakarka item. So you can't tell them anything. So therefore, every type of dekel would be osir. Is that the problem that you're suggesting we suffer in Maseches Avoda Zara, and that's why you're saying we don't even know the 5 prokim? Amalei, my dekel tav, it means Paris dekel tav. So therefore, you don't have a kash anymore. So I don't understand why you think we are struggling to understand Maseches Avoda Zara. It's very clear. Dekel tav means the Paris of a dekel tav, and it's not mechuber lakarka. So problem solved. V'chein amar afuna Paris dekel tav, chetzev is kasva. Chetzev is kasva. What is kasva? I don't even know. Rashi says it's a min tomorrow. It's a type of date. K'moy molitaska de kasvi. The is the amar hayne chatzuva shaboy tichem Yeshua sa'aretz. It's a type of plant that Yeshua used to plant around the borders to show the borders of the land. The Esav do, who's a beautiful type of grass. So maybe that's what it's referring to. And Niklas, what is Niklas? Right, our Mishnah says Nikla, but we change English to Niklas. Kiyaser Abdimi, Amar Abchama Bar Yosef. It is kuraiti. What is kuraiti? Rashi says it's min peris. It's some type of fruit. The Yeshayim Afruris is karte levoina, chunks of levoina. But nira, I don't think that's what it means, because then came Amai Leyodi, the Gemara in a minute is going to say, what is that? If it's levoina, we know what it is. Amar Abaye Ravdimi Tnan Niklas V'lo Yodin and Mahu. We said that we learned Niklas and we didn't know what it was, right? And therefore we asked, what is it? So what did you answer me? You answered me karaiti. That doesn't help me, because if we still V'lo Yodinan, I still don't know what it means. You gave me another word that I don't know what it means. So you haven't given me any better of an understanding what it is that's prohibited. Maya Haneslan, exactly how are you helping us? Zokt Gemara, what do you mean? I'll tell you how I help you. Because over here you might not know what it is. But when you go to Eretz Yisrael, if you tell them I'm looking for a Nicholas plant, they'll look at you and they won't know what you're talking about. But if you tell them I'm looking for karaiti, they will know what it is, and they'll show you. So just because you don't know what karaiti is, if you go to Eretz Yisrael and you ask for karaiti, they will be able to show it. So I really am helping you by telling you the definition of Niklas being karaiti. Zok Heilige Mishnah weiter. Mokum shenahagu limkor behemedaka lo'ivdei kechavim. In places where the minig was to sell a behemedaka to a guy, moichin you're allowed to sell. And mokum shenahagu shaloi limkor ein moichin. Why would someone argue that you cannot sell a behemedaka to a guy? Zok Rashi kagoy mokum shaloi nechshedu al haraviyah. If you go to YouTube, you could see many drone pictures of Arabs that become very intimate with their sheep and with their goats and with their animals. So you're not allowed to be over. Now, Revia is also for a guy to do. So by you selling him a behemedaka, you're over on the thing, because you're giving him another intimate partner that he could engage in. So that's why there are certain places where the minig is you're not allowed to sell them. You're not allowed to sell them these types of animals. That's not mentioned in this Mishnah at all. So behemedaka is the minig, and the minig is probably telling you if you need to be choshed for this particular problem over there. Okay, but wherever it is, ein moichin lahem behemegasa. You're not allowed to sell them a behemegasa. Why not? So Rashi, that's for a whole different problem. We had this a couple of blot ago. Mipnei shemiyuchedes l'malacha. A behema gasa, like cattle or horses or donkeys. The horses might be the exception. Those items you're never allowed to sell mipnei shemiyuchedes l'malacha because they are used to work. V'oisa behemtei malacha b'Shabbos, and your behema, your mitzvah on shavisas behemtecha. Your animal's not allowed to work on Shabbos. Oh, but it's sold. So why is there a problem? So the Gemara is going to say that the concern is if you sell, you might rent, and he'll be using your animal on Shabbos. The Gemara is going to ask if you rent, maybe that's also called he owned it for that period of time. So the Gemara says that we're afraid that if you sell to him, you might be trying to close a deal right before Shabbos, and you'll talk and show him how your animal can carry something, just to demonstrate, and that might be very late, close to Shabbos, and that could lead to Chil Shabbos, and therefore you're not allowed to sell him a Be'em Agasa ever. It's very interesting. Tosha speaks about that. Tosha is going to speak about later. It makes a difference. If you're in a place where if you don't sell to Goyim, you don't have a business, that's a different story. If you're living in a very Jewish area where you can easily do your business with a Jew, fine. But but nowadays, Tosha will speak out that things are a little bit different because otherwise you wouldn't have anybody to sell to. Right? We know if you're a retailer, you have to sell to a goy because Jews only buy wholesale. We know, right? Zog to Gemara, the chamakim eimochen on bebegasa, agolim and seyachim. Agolim are calves and seyachim are baby donkeys. I think shleiman ushavurin. It doesn't make a difference if they're healthy or if they're broken and they can't do work. Why not? So Rashi vafilu shavurin she'enan ru'inim malacha still goes with rabbanon. They were still gozer dilma asi lachlufe va'asi lemizban. So we're really concerned about this because we're even answering behemoths that you wouldn't sell l'malacha because we're afraid that once you sell them animals, you'll sell them all types. This is what I was referring to earlier. If you hold that they still belong to the original owner during that period of time, so now your behemoth is doing malacha on Shabbos, or you're demonstrating. That would happen while church right before Shabbos. Time of the Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda mater b'shvura, and the Gemara will explain why. Uben b'seira mater b'sus. We had this uben b'seira mater b'sus. Rashi says the reason is she'enu alakta el rechiva. The primary use of a horse is for a rider to ride on. That midaraisa will never be usher al tzitzis behemtoi because chai noises atzmai. Right. That's why midaraisa you're allowed to carry a child on Shabbos who could walk by himself because a chai noises atzmai. So therefore, a horse which is not made to carry packages, it's made to carry people, there's never really a problem. It's only with rabbanon v'lav melocha, and therefore we're not concerned because it's not going to lead to a melocha deraisa anyway. Zok Gemara, lememra, you're telling me the isur leka, it's not usur to sell a behema dakat goy, even though you're afraid he's going to be intimate with it, and there'll be a isur. But it's still not usher to sell him. It's only a minhagahu. To remember the surah leka minhagahu deika, and therefore heiche denog isur nog, heiche denog heter nog. Are you telling me that no problem? It's only a minig, and therefore there's no real deraisa. I'll prove to you that there's a deraisa. Or a minig. The halach is ein mamidin behema v'pun dechoy shaloi tikachavim. You're not allowed to let your animal go and stay overnight in the goyish animal storage facility where they're watching it for you. You know why? If you provide them with your animal and you ask him to watch it for you overnight, now here it doesn't say minik, it says it's usher, black and white. Why? Because there's a real chashash. So if it's usher, black and white, to put your animal in their animal watching service, so then why should selling to them be any different? Shouldn't we tell them a minik? The same way it's a hard isser to put your animal in one of their stalls overnight, similarly it should be usher to sell to them. Because it's all telling the same thing. Are you choshed for a veer or not? You see, clearly it's a real chashash. Amarav, makam shetiru limkar, hetiru.
So Yosy, does that mean I shouldn't lend my car to a goy and I shouldn't lend any?
Well, I haven't yet seen someone have
for an Avera?
With a car. In a car, I didn't say. I said with a car. That's basically.
So the car's a groma as opposed to the Avera item itself?
Well, if a groma would be also, you couldn't sell them anything because any you couldn't sell them a tent, you couldn't sell them anything because anything that you sell them could be a setting to do an Avera. Right, you could use it right. Never mind, there's no, so you could be talking about Avoda Zara as well. so that wouldn't be a problem. The problem is actually selling him the partner. So Zok to Gemara, Amarav, you're right, it's totally Zabazah. Makam Shatir Limkar, Hitir Liyachid, and Makam Shaosu Liyachid, Asu Limkar. So our Mishnah that says Makam that there are places where it's mutter to sell. In those places, in fact, it would also be mutter to allow a goy to be miyachid with your animal. And the Brisa that says Ein Mamidim Behema, that obviously is also a place where the minig would be that you're not allowed to sell to them either. Let's see Rashi. Amarav b'makam shetir limkar klemer yichud nami b'menhaga toya milsa. The Brisa that says Ein Mamidim Behema is also totally in a minig. Umakam shenago limkar the katani masnisin. If it's a place where people don't have intimacy with animals, their yichud would be allowed as well. There, that's how people behave. They do these types of mitzvahs, but it all goes not our minig, but to the minig of the goyim in that place. If the minig of the goyim in that place are to do these deviant things, then you wouldn't be allowed to sell to them, nor give your animal to them to watch overnight. But if it's a place where there's more sane and they don't do these types of things, then of course you could sell them. Okay, we could stop here and we will, Be'ez Hashem, continue tomorrow. But Baruch Hashem, we finished the daf. Even though we were only like 4 lines away, but it says